Welcome back to a new Hints and Theories video, this time about episode number 3. I know I'm a little bit late to the party this time, but that will not stop us from searching for them all. And also being a little bit late maybe also has an advantage, at least sometimes, because you probably know that there also is a WIDM app, and you can basically play a little game in that app, so you can put points on your suspects and then, be happy if you still have points compared to, the others. And we also, by the way, have an international pool again in that app. If you want to join us there, then you just can click on the link in the description box below. And also in that app, on Mondays, there always is an official test question. So a question that actually the candidates had to answer in the test in the episode we just got to watch. And I thought, let's take this opportunity to just have a quick look at the questions we got so far. So in the first week, for the first episode, we got a question if the mole was a mole or a candidate back in his or her first season. Then the second one was if the mole was in the chemistry lab or in the classroom in the task in the school in last week's episode. And this time the question is, how many times did the mole enter the laser game field? 1 time or 2 times? So let me know in the comments below what your answers to those questions would have been. And with that, we dive right into task number 1. In this task, the candidates had to deliver pasta del nata, and we had 2 groups. One group who had to reach the speed limits, or actually be faster than the speed limits, and the second group who was the, actual deliver group. And I first thought that the mole would like to be in the delivery group because, you can just throw away some of those pastries. And exactly that was my thought when Zahil and Kim divided at some point during their search for the right location. And then, Zahil said in the interview scene that he actually tried to test Kim with that. In the end, the delivery group seemed to actually have done a great job because it went around the bounds of pasta de nata and they reached the locations. So if the mole was part of that group, then he or she probably tried to more, but it did not work out in the end. In the other group, again, some things went wrong. So 3 times they were not faster than the speed limit, and 2 of those 3 times it was due to Jurre, 1 time with that ball, and 1 time with those plastic cups he had to walk on. Then we probably also got an anti-mole action from Nathan there, because when he did his very special technique with the skateboard, the other candidates were, let's say, skeptical as well, but he did actually reach the speed limit. So it turned out pretty well, and that task was counted correctly, or was counted as good. So that was his opportunity to mole, and he did not do that. Also, I think a very easy way to mole here would have been to just connect the wrong speech limits to the wrong sport items, so to say. That is probably the easiest way, so that you know with that bouncing ball you simply cannot reach more than 5 miles per hour, or how fast it was. In task number 2, we had a laser game task, and how cool was it that they brought back all of those old enemies, like the blind ballerina and those creepy as hell puppet faces or girl faces. It was just wow. Anyway, I really like the idea for an anniversary season to just come up with all of those old creepy figures. Anyway, some candidates had the chance to go twice into the game, just like as Nathan, for example. And I think it could be a bit difficult to figure out who moled here, simply because we did not get to see what was in the bags they brought back. So I really would have liked one of the candidates to, check the bags when they arrived at the cars, but they did not do that, unfortunately. So we know that Dennis brought in some minus money, but we also know now that Dennis isn't the mole. And then we also know that Nathan had some of the minus money in his pocket, with actually quite nice explanation so that the money wouldn't fly around and the mole could put it back into the bags. But then I actually hammered out if they counted it minus money or not, because yes, it wasn't in the bags anymore, but then again it was outside of the game field and in the car. So do you know if they counted it or not? I would really like to know that. Then there was something weird going on with Anne-Marie's uniform jacket thing, because as you know, they had lights on there showing that they were in the game, and some fans spotted that the light from Anne-Marie's jacket did not work, which is weird because either it means her jacket did not work, and then there's the question like what happened when she got shot. Did it count? Did they lose a life due to that? Or the second question is, if she's the mole, did she have a special jacket? But then it would be very obvious if that would work without a light on. So yeah, a bit of a weird thing. I also found it pretty funny that Sahil described his and Meryl's adventures so in detail and just like a story. And I recognized that Meryl did not really say anything about it. And all in all, I have the feeling that we do not get to see her that much in the interview scenes until now. I have to say that I've heard and read that she actually was sick when they started filming the season, so she went to Portugal being ill, which probably is the reason why we do not get to see her that much. It could also be a hint to the mole, that the production wants to try to keep her in the background a bit more. Merel, by the way, was the person that a lot of people think she is the one who is the most suspicious. As you know, in the WIDM app, you get to see what the other people think. So yeah, there she's on top. And then I would also like to know how the mole actually tried to mole there. Of course, you can lose a lot of lives, but then you could also probably hide some min money in there and then put it in the bags. I would actually think this is an opportunity as well to mole there. So yeah, I'm really curious if we get to know more about it at the end of this season. And last but not least, we have to talk about the position as treasurer, because as you know, there was a last task in this episode, which actually gave Jure a huge advantage. Because he was able to talk to the mole while the other candidates stood there, so he could, watch their reactions and talk to the mole. And there were a few things here that were a bit suspicious. First of all, we had the discussion earlier in this episode about him being the treasurer. And of course, this decision comes up 1 day or 2 days before an important task like this appears, makes the people coming up with the discussion suspicious, but also Jure as well, who in his interview scene said that he would like to stay, or that he wants to stay treasurer until he either makes a mistake or had an advantage from it. Yeah, that seems like he knew something would come up very soon. So maybe a bit suspicious here. And then, of course, there were a few suspicious reactions. So first of all, the candidates, of course, listened to Rick's yoga podcast. And in the beginning of that, he said that they should let their arms hang on their sides. And there's one person who did not do that, and it was Sahil, who still had his arms behind his back. Which probably was, a bit weird. Then also some fans spotted that he had different headphones than the other candidates, which, is just as weird as the not working light on Anne-Marie's jacket in the task before that one. So would they really use a different set of headphones for the mole because he needed another way to communicate with Jure? Yeah, it seems just a bit too obvious to me, but still, of course, it could be, and then would be very obvious. Also, some fans spotted that there was a mistake on the scale behind them, but I'm not really sure if they have a theory for what it actually means so far. So if you have an idea what was wrong there, then one of the height numbers wasn't correct. So if you have an idea what that could mean, then well, let me know in the comments below. And then of course Jura tried to make them all laugh, and 2 people actually laughed. The first one was Merel right in the beginning, and the second one was Kim a little bit later. And I have to say that I first thought that it was a nice idea of Jura, because making them all laugh probably isn't what that person suspected to happen. But then again, I do not get why he did not change his tactic at some point, because he even said that he needed to change his tactic too, as he recognized that it, well, did not really work out. But then he just, well, continued making jokes and fun and that funny voice. And I also, but maybe I got that wrong, thought it was a bit weird that he stopped right when the minus 1,000 euro popped up on his screen, because I thought it popped up and then he would have the time for that. But it popped up and he just said, I stop. So maybe it popped up meaning that it was the end of that time span. Yeah, so I'm not really sure about that, but still, I think he probably could have used this time a little bit better. Now, I hope that this gives you a great time for discussion. I know there's a lot more in this episode, but I really wanted to do a quick, short summary for you here, as I'm already a little bit late this time. Let me know all of your thoughts, hints, ideas, theories in the comments below. I'm really looking forward to read all of them. And I also hope to see you back next week when we will talk about episode number 4. Until then, bye!